provincial emergency teams are on the ground. Moving supplies up the coast, however, it will create a major logistical effort, and sending in a bean counter just won't cut it. The community has asked for the help of Canada's military to help coordinate supplies to get them up the coast. Will the government accept this request so that the people of Attawapiskat may yet have a Merry Christmas?
The Minister of Aboriginal Affairs.
Unlike the NDP, we are focused on the residents of Attawapiskat and not on scoring political points. We've been working around the clock on a plan to ensure residents, especially children, have warm, dry places to sleep. We have a plan, Mr. Speaker. We're still committed to working with the Band Council, and we urge them to be part of the solution going forward.
The Minister of Aboriginal Affairs did announce a plan today. John Duncan says permanent homes will be sent to Attawapiskat as soon as possible, and money will be provided to fix up permanent structures for people to stay in till those homes are ready. Here is Aptn's Nigel Newlove with an exclusive interview with Minister John Duncan about his plan.
In terms of the plans, when do you expect these houses to be delivered?
Well, my understanding is that for that part of Northern Ontario, the ice roads are ready for late traffic about the middle of January. And by the end of January, they put a layer of ice on, and it's good for heavy traffic. So I would assume the end of January, if this year's like last year, and the year before, and the year before.
And how many houses do you expect to be delivering?
We expect to be delivering 15. This is the number identified by the emergency management officials on the ground in Attawapiskat.
And are you still absolutely devoted to third-party management?
Yes, the third-party manager will actually assist this process considerably and expedite payment, expedite everything. So this is making it a much simpler exercise for us, because we just have to move on this, and so we are.
And how much is it going to cost, and where is the money going to come from?
Well, I'm not sure what the total cost is at this point. We have the approvals in place, and we are proceeding. When it comes to emergency response, cost is not our first determinant. So this was the infrastructure that was indicated to us is needed in order to take care of the urgent health and safety needs, so we're just doing it.
Grand Chief Stan Luton has been talking about Attawapiskat for more than a month now, and he's not sure his message is getting out. Yesterday in Ottawa, the Grand Chief of the Mushkegowuk Council in Ontario called for civil disobedience. We spoke to him earlier today before the federal government's announced their plans for Attawapiskat. Grand Chief, you represent a number of communities. Attawapiskat has been in the news, but is there a bigger picture here that we should all be looking at?
I think Attawapiskat is not alone in this situation. There are a number of Attawapiskats across the country. In our area, there's two other communities south of Attawapiskat, not very far, Saskatchewan First Nation and Fort Albany First Nation. And though their degree of a crisis in terms of housing is not as bad, certainly they're in a crisis situation as well.
Okay. Well, you know, the NDP have recently called for the Army, possibly even the disaster response team, to be brought in. What are your thoughts on that idea?
I think it's appropriate. Whenever there's a crisis and an emergency, anywhere in the province, anywhere else in the country, anywhere across other nations in the world, what does Canada do? What do other nations do? They mobilize their disaster relief teams. They mobilize their emergency planning expertise, and they go to that area and they help, and they provide relief, and they provide some temporary shelter and some other services to those people that are in a crisis. So why not us?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Well, you know, you said civil disobedience may be used as a possible tactic as First Nation grassroots people get angrier and angrier. Why do you feel this may happen, and do you think there are better tactics out there?
when the chiefs are meeting here in Ottawa and we are talking about the resolution in support of the Attawapiskat First Nation, many chiefs from across Canada stood up and spoke, and one of the common themes of the chiefs speaking in terms of the Attawapiskat situation is do we have to take up civil disobedience to be heard? Why is this happening? Governments and other people know of the crisis well before it happens, and then when it happens, and then when we declare an emergency and we want to do things and we want action, government procrastinates and instead tells us, stay out of the way, get out of the way, you're not doing what you need to do, we're going to put you in a third-party management and we're taking over. Is that a way to treat people when they're in a crisis? And why shouldn't we be pissed off? Surely we should be pissed off, and we should be thinking about all those kinds of actions. And that's exactly what the Chiefs talked about this week at the AFN Chiefs meeting.
All right, sir. Well, I've heard veteran journalists from our own organization and other organizations say they've never seen the Canadian public respond to a crisis like they've responded to Attawapiskat. Now, civil disobedience is something that's aimed at government and business. So are you worried that by using civil disobedience, you may be hampering non-Aboriginal Canadians' ability to jump on board with the First Nation wave of change?
Sure, we have to be careful about these things. We don't just jump into action and without thinking go do things. We think about it, we plan it out, we consult with our people, we talk to our elders, we talk to our chiefs, and we plan it out ourselves and say, is this the right thing to do, and how effective will it be? And I think at the end of the day, if that's what our people are saying, or that's what our elders are saying, then it's something that we need to consider. But certainly it's not something that we want to do. What we want to do is work with the government. We want to work with the minister. We want to work with the other nation and say, look, okay, there's a crisis, and we both have a responsibility here. Let's roll up our sleeves and get to work. That's what we want to do.
Yes, sir. Well, do you see that? Do you see the Canadian public jumping on board?
Well, for the most part, we're getting a lot of support out there. But sadly, and I'm getting these emails as we speak. I'm getting hate emails telling me, "Smart up, get off your rear end and get to work." And what's wrong with you people? Sadly, I'm getting those kinds of emails. But for the most part, I think the general public is in support and sympathizes with our situation.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, in your meeting with the minister, John Duncan said that third-party management is how it's going to be. So, what options do you have?
I think our options are still there. What we need to do, of course, our preference, number one is that we want to still have a discussion with the minister. We want to be able to come to some reasonable compromise in terms of how we can move this thing forward. If it's not third party, is there some place in the middle? Is there some kind of a middle regime idea that we can both agree to? Any negotiation, you're trying to agree at some kind of a compromise, and that's what we're trying to do. That's what we want to do, and we're looking at all of our other options as well. We are looking at any legal challenges out there that we might be able to use in terms of the decision of the minister during a crisis, no doubt, while we are down, kicking us while we're down, to be able to tell us you're in a crisis, and because you are responsible for that crisis, we're going to now take over. That we feel that is just not right morally and perhaps legally as well.
All right, Grand Chief, thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, a power outage continues to affect two communities on the Quebec side of James Bay. That power outage hit Chisasibi and Wemindji this week. The temperature in the area tonight is reaching the -20s with the wind. A Hydro-Quebec spokesperson says crews are on the ground now trying to restore power. They've got partial power restored in both communities.
The situation right now in Chisasibi and Wemindji is that a total of 16 generators will be in place and operating by Friday morning, 6 in Chisasibi and 10 in Wemindji. There are some technicians and engineers that are working day in and day out to find out the problem and to fix it, and to make sure that if we restore power, there will be stability of the grid.
Coming up, a Saskatoon theater company created